to check that out and sign up. Okay, so let us turn to practice for today, and I'm very excited to welcome my friend and colleague, Rabbi Levy, who is the rabbi of Congregation Netivot Shalom in Berkeley, California. As I mentioned, we are framing all of our practice in terms of the Midah of the week. This is day 1 of week 2 of the Omer, and I know, Chai, you're going to frame our practice in terms of the qualities associated with this specific day. So turn it over to you, and just want to make sure that everyone else is muted. Here we go.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark. And thank you to you and to all the amazing teachers and staff at IJS. IJS has been such a great support to me, always in my work, and especially it's been so needed during this pandemic. When Mark invited me to lead a meditation during the counting of the Omer, I immediately said, sure, and I will take Chesed Shebegevura, because this particular combination of Sfirot is really important in my life. I think about it as a guiding framework, really on a daily basis, for making decisions in my work as a rabbi, for guiding my parenting. And it's a language that I often use in teaching and in counseling others. So today's Sfirot, or divine qualities, emanations, energies, are special for me. And I'm glad to reflect on them with you and to allow them to guide us in our practice. So what is Chesed within Gevura all about? And I'll ask Adi to put up the chart for a moment. So we finished the first week of Chesed, which is loving kindness, or to use the language that's here on this map, loving connection. So Chesed, you may be familiar with the word from Gimilut Chasadim, acts of loving kindness. It's the quality that's both divine and human, modeled by Abraham and Sarah, who welcome guests into their open tent. And this week, we begin the week of Gevura, which means strength, limits, boundaries, or as we're calling it here, wise boundaries. And this first day of the week of Gevura is the aspect of Chesed within Gevura. So the Sfirot, as you can see, map onto the human body in Kabbalah. And Chesed, it's a little bit higher up there on the map, but Chesed is the right hand. Gevura is the left hand. And I think of it like this. Chesed, the right hand, is saying yes. It's offering, it's flowing, it's welcoming, it's giving. And the left hand is saying no, that's enough. And Chesed and Gevura might seem like opposites, but the two go together. Gevura creates a container for the flow of Chesed. Love that's flowing indiscriminately without boundaries is problematic. And strength and limits without loving kindness, balancing it, can be severe, can be harsh. Kabbalah actually understands evil to come from an imbalance of Gevura in the world. So we want to cultivate a balance of Chesed and Gevura. And we want to have the awareness to know when to practice which. So Adi, thank you. You can stop the screen share now that people have been able to see them. So on this first day of the week of Gevura is Chesed within Gevura. Loving kindness that's within limits, or loving connection within wise boundaries. So what does this mean in real life? So here's one way to think about it. When my son was a toddler, I took a parenting class, and we learned about balancing kindness and firmness, or kindness within firmness. It's another way of saying Chesed within Gevura. When you lovingly tell a young child they can't have ice cream for breakfast, or when you stop them from running into the street. These are wise boundaries, gevura, and they're infused with love, with chesed, and ideally are expressed with chesed. And by the way, parenting in a pandemic is a constant practice of cultivating chesed within gevura. How do I lovingly stay connected to my kid while telling him he can't sit in front of the screen and have screen time the entire day? It's finding love, connection, and saying yes within the saying no of setting wise limits. And I find that I need to practice this on a regular basis in my life. How do I set limits with compassion and love? As a congregational rabbi, for example, during this past year of COVID, how do I respond to a family who wants to have extended family and friends present for a life cycle event like a bar mitzvah or a funeral? I have to enforce limits. I have to practice gevura for safety, for public health protocols. But I try to do so with chesed, with loving connection, compassion, and understanding of how painful this is for them. So these are just a few personal examples of how chesed within gevura is a helpful framework in my daily life. But infusing chesed into gevura is not so easy to do. And this is where our mindfulness practice comes in. Some of us are more naturally gevura. Perhaps we gevura people might notice our reactions when our boundaries get pushed. When someone's late for a meeting, or when someone walks in my room when I'm on a Zoom call, when someone doesn't seem to be following the rules. We might notice our gevura can become severe, harsh, judgmental. How might we bring some chesed into our gevura? You never know what someone is dealing with. And then on the other hand, some of us are more naturally chesed. And during this week of gevura, we might reflect on, where do we need stronger boundaries? Is our love overwhelming to someone? Or do we give so much that we get depleted and need more of a Shabbat where we can say no to doing? Where might we cultivate gevura or wise boundaries? I've noticed my own relationship with gevura over the years, and I've tried to bring in mindfulness. And I found that when I'm invoking gevura and saying no and setting a boundary, I'm often in a state of feeling somehow threatened or disrespected or imposed on. And I can react with a strong no that can be overly harsh. So I try to work on bringing awareness to my gevura and try to cultivate chesed within that gevura. How can I respond more lovingly? How can I bring loving connection both to myself and to the other in setting a necessary limit? Can I stand my ground but without anger? Can I set a boundary with compassion? Again, it's like parenting a young child with kindness and firmness. So let's practice. Let's sit upright with awareness, noticing our breath. And I invite you to take your right hand, your hand of chesed, the hand that says yes. It's reaching out, it's giving, offering. Feel your right hand open, extending. Just feel what chesed feels like. And then I invite you to take your left hand, the hand that says no, the hand that sets limits and creates needed and wise boundaries and strength. And just feel these qualities of chesed and gevura. Feel that within you, within your experience. So today is chesed within Gevurah. So we can bring our hands together. You can put your chesed hand, your right hand, on your heart if you're comfortable. And then take your left hand, your Gevurah hand, and put it on your chesed hand. Can we cultivate chesed and loving connection to infuse Gevurah into the places that require limits and boundaries and strength? You can close your eyes if you like. And if you're comfortable, keep your hands on your heart if that helps you become more aware of your experience of chesed within Gevurah. You may notice where the qualities of chesed and Gevurah are real in your life right now. Love within limits, compassion within wise boundaries, kindness within firmness, standing your ground without anger, feeling your heart, your chesed, your loving connection that is there and available within the wisdom of needed boundaries. Feel compassion and balance even as you set limits. So we'll sit with that. chesed within Gevura, kindness within firmness, love within limits, compassion within wise boundaries. Come back, you can open your eyes, feeling your heart, your right hand of chesed, your left hand of Gevura. This whole past year has been a practice of chesed within Gevura. Masks and social distancing is practicing Gevura, wise boundaries. And we do it out of chesed, out of caring for others. May our Gevura be infused with chesed. Today, on this 8th day of the Omer, Chesed Shebegevura, and each day.
Amen. Thank you so much, Rabbi Chai Levy. Beautiful teaching. And we can bring it into our practice of using our Gevura to create this container, this supportive container of love for those of us who are in mourning or observing a yard site. And we invite those of you who are remembering someone today to share the name or names of those people whom you're holding in your heart in the chat box if you'd like. And I invite those of you who are reciting Kaddish to join me by rising in body or in spirit. Yitgadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbi,
Amen.
Yama, Divra, Chirute, V'yamif, Malchute, V'chaye Chon, V'yamei Chon, V'chaye T'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala, Zman Kariv, Bru, Amen. Shmei Rabba Mevarach, Lam Olamei Amaya, Yitbarach, Abach, Ba'ar, V'yitlam V'yitlase, Tadar V'yitpaleh, V'yitpa'al, Shmei T'kudeshu, La'elam Kol Birchata V'shirata Kamata Ba'alma. Esh Lama Rabba Shamaya Chaim Aleinu V'Yal Yisrael Yaseh Shalom B'Mamav Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'Yal Yisrael V'Yal Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'Imru. Amen. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much to Rabbi Chai Levy for leading us, kicking off our week of Gevura practice so beautifully today. Thanks to Robin Marks for sponsoring our practice today in loving memory of your mom, Raz, Zichrona Livracha. Thank you so much for that. Thanks each of you for joining us. I want to remind you that we have shifted and we now are streaming these meditations as well as our yoga on Monday and Torah study on Tuesday are all streaming live on our YouTube channel. So I encourage you to subscribe to that channel so you'll get notifications. But maybe more importantly, just to know that all the recordings of the meditations, the yoga and the text and the Torah study are now being archived there on our YouTube channel. So for any reason you miss or would like to revisit any of the meditations, you're welcome to do so there. We have a wonderful lineup of teachers this week. We invite you to join us tomorrow for practice with Murin Shama Nicolescu, who will be joining us from Jerusalem. On Wednesday, we'll be led by Rabbi Jonathan Slater, our very own IJS, my friend and colleague at IJS. Thursday, Rabbi Dorothy Richmond. And Friday, Aviva Chernik will be joining us from Toronto to lead us in practice. So looking forward to a wonderful week of practice in the week of Gevura. So we hope if you're leaving us now, you can join us, but you're welcome to stay on for some questions and answer and conversation with Rabbi Chai Levy about today's beautiful teaching. And or if you just want to share reflections on the practice. So I am without internet. So I am on my phone, and it's going to be a little especially challenging to follow the questions in the chat.
Mark, I'm happy to find the questions for you and read them out loud if you'd like.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let me start. Let me lead it off, and Adi, if you would jump in with that, that would be great. And I can't tell if Chai and I are jointly spotlighted. Maybe we can do that if that's possible.
You are.
Okay, great. I feel like I'm flying through the clouds here.
I got you.
Okay. So Chai, that was great. You had me, all the way. And as a parent, of course, I had a lot of resonance with what you said. And I guess I was interested in, for starting off the conversation here, by applying what you were teaching, the examples you were giving about the applying Gevura in service of protecting the toddler from running into the street. And you could expand it to the teenager or the tween who wants to be online all day. But I was thinking about it in terms of mindfulness practice, meditation specifically, when we set an intention, first of all, just to be present. Everybody is practicing Gevura just by being here. You've carved out time in your day, right? But the mind is, I don't know, I guess it occurred to me, see what you think about this, if equivalence. I was thinking of the mind as kind of this manifestation of chesed that really is, doesn't know any limits. It's just running all over the place. Exactly. Right. Oh, that's interesting. Like out of curiosity and love and searching for connection, and really just doesn't know limits. And that's fine. It serves a purpose, right? And Gevura is that moment when we catch ourselves saying, whoa, wait a minute. I don't want to daydream about that story I heard or something I'm doing later, or what am I going to make for dinner tonight? Then the Gevura comes in and say, wait a minute, you're sitting here, you set aside time to do this practice, come back to the breath, to the sensation, to this moment. And what's the tone in that voice? Just like the tone of the parent telling the kid, not the toddler, don't run into the street, right? What is communicated there and how we do that? So I wondering, what do you think about that in terms of your own experience with meditation,
Yeah, well, so I read a book, a very famous book. I think it's called How to Talk So Your Kid Will Listen, or something like that. How do you talk so your child will listen? It's like a parenting classic. And one of the things that the writer teaches is that our inclination with little kids is to say, no, don't do that, right? How do we turn that no, that harsh no, into a yes? So in other words, or into a compassionate understanding. So let's say the kid doesn't want to go to bed. And instead of saying, no, go to bed, it's your bedtime, you can say, oh, sweetie, I know it's so hard to stop playing. And it's so great to be with mom. And I understand it's really hard to go to bed right now, right? So instead of a harsh no, it's a very compassionate, I feel how hard this is. It's not giving in and not holding the Gevura boundary, but it's turning it into, it's bringing the chesed, it's bringing the yes into the limit. Right. And so maybe that's the same kind of thing with meditation, is when we feel or we notice those thoughts coming in or whatever it is, and instead of responding with that harsh judgment, severity, it's bringing in the chesed and the oh, honey, there you go again with that story. There you go again. It's okay. It's okay. Right? Something like that, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, I really like that. because this is like, just as it is the ultimate pandemic practice, it really is like central to at least how I understand mindfulness meditation, and specifically talking about Jewish mindfulness. What is Jewish mindfulness meditation? Is like, what is the nature of that? Like you just said, how do we talk to ourselves when we need to say no to where the mind wants to go? And we're doing that, out of love and with compassion for why the mind wants to go where it wants to go, right? It's not like there's anything wrong with where that mind wants to go. It's just like, for now, let's stay here. We're just going to stay here for now, right? It has to like developing patience. Okay, let's see what we got. Adi, or I don't know. Maybe you can. Hi, maybe you can see also. Adi, what do we got?
A question from Cheryl Shapiro. Please compare, contrast difference between Chesed shebe Gevura and Gevura shebe Chesed.
Go.
Okay, let's try that. Okay, so I mean, I think they're similar. I think, Mark, you've been describing the major sphera of the week and the sort of minor aspect within it. So all of these are different aspects of really they're ones, they're very similar. Let me just think for a moment how I might say them differently. I guess the first thing that's coming to mind is, as I was saying before, I think some of us are more naturally chesed and maybe need to cultivate our gevura a little bit more. Maybe we, I have a friend that I worked with, and I'm always the gevura to her chesed, and she's the chesed to my gevura. She's always late to meetings because she's doing some loving thing. She did some mitzvah to take care of somebody. She's doing some creative thing. And I'm the one who's like on time, and I could use a little bit of her flow, and she could use a little bit of my boundaries. And so I think gevura within chesed is bringing a little bit more of boundaries, structure, limits into that flow and expansiveness. And today I've tried to frame chesed within gevura is gevura can become overly harsh and severe if it doesn't have the chesed infusing it.
Yeah.
Right.
I think you nailed that.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember what the teaching was last week, which was when we had Gevura shebe Chesed, but I don't remember.
Well,
but I do think
you probably didn't have a sit that day because that was the.
Oh yeah, right. That's. Or why.
Did you?
No, yeah, because it was second day. No, we did. That was our first one.
Yeah,
that was our first one, right?
Yeah. Okay.
I don't remember. But the idea of like creating a boundary that that is able to channel chesed more effectively, right? So that it doesn't just spill over the place. Like, I guess we could think about it in terms of if we prioritize where we direct our chesed, right? It may be that the people who are closest to us might say, like, "Wow, you like are very loving and attentive to other people." But I'm your inner circle here. I thought I was, you're not showing up for me because you're all over the place. And it may be that it helps us thinking about it that way in terms of prioritizing, and also not overstepping with our chesed too. Like, we can be like smothering each other with, like, I know what you need. You need this. And gevura lets us stop and say, well, let me check that out. What do you need? How can I help you? Right.
We've all known someone who, is so full of chesed. They come and give you this big hug, and it's like, whoa, like that might've been a little bit more than I really wanted. Right. And it's like, sometimes chesed can be too overwhelming and needs to have those limitations. And so I like what Lisa wrote in the chat, cultivating both with attention to the particular one we are focusing on.
That's nice. Yeah. What else we got?
Question from Lori. Understanding the wisdom of chesed within Gevura, I'm noticing dissonance with my more Buddhist or Kabbalistic teachings / practices of unbounded, limitless love without dualistic opposite of boundaries. Can you please speak to this?
Well, I think it's kind of like what I was saying a moment ago about, the hug that is too smothering or too much, and I don't know enough about, what unbounded, limitless love might mean in a Buddhist or other context. But I think certainly in Judaism, we have divine love, we have ahava rabbah, but in terms of the, chesed, or the flow of love within us, we do have limits, right? There are appropriate boundaries for how one expresses love. There are limits, we have the 6 days of the week and we have Shabbat. It's like not everything is okay at every time. There is a need for limits and boundaries. That's what comes to my mind. Do you have anything to add to that, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm thinking it's one of those, it's a paradox, I guess, in Jewish thought that Jewish thought embraces, that Kabbalah embraces, right? The Kabbalists, the mystics were critiqued for having these 10 sefirot, of people saying, what do you mean? There are 10, you're saying there are 10 gods? They say, no. There's 10 sefirot, but there's no duality, there's no distinction. It's all one. They all contain all the others. So in other words, we do this in a linear way, right? Like one midah or one sefirah a week, and each day another one to go with it. But that's just because we're trying to break it down to, be able to access it in some way. But there's another way of understanding it, that at the same time, it's all one. We think Gevura and Chesed are in contradiction or in contrast or other than each other, but actually they're part of the same. It's one organism. I think my favorite metaphor is Sam Smith, I think, used this last Friday. I mean, the one is the wave in the ocean, and the other, another one is the cell, a cell in a single organism. And I'm thinking, I don't know, I was diving a little bit into the details of cell membranes, which I haven't studied since 7th grade, but the semi-permeability of cell membranes that allow things to flow through it. Like you have a single organism composed of all these different cells, and it looks like it's made up of all these different pieces. But actually, when you take into account that there is something that is moving through all the cells, and they're all interrelated, interdependent, you say that, nah, they're not separate. It's actually one thing. So I don't know if that's how because we are I think trying to support a non-dualistic way of understanding this. That is not intention. I don't know, requires a longer conversation with, I guess it was Lisa who brought it up. No, somebody brought it up. Whoever brought it up. It's a good topic. It's a good question.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
It is 1:14. Do we have time for one more, or should we?
Sure, a real easy one like that last one.
From Lisa Goldstein, should we also look at Gevura as not necessarily, quote unquote, our own boundary, but recognizing the boundary of the other?
Take it, Chai.
Yeah, I think that's really nice. I mean, we certainly can't necessarily know exactly where someone else's boundary is. I think that we can become more aware of our own personal boundaries, but yes, I think that definitely makes sense. Do you have a specific example in mind, Lisa, that you're thinking of? I don't know if she's still on here, but I guess we can probably all think of our own examples.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. These are great questions and stuff to reflect on throughout this day of Chesed Shebegevura. This
was awesome. Thank you, Chai. Thank you so much. And thanks, Robin, and thanks, Adi, for co-piloting through the fog here. Looking forward to being back with everyone tomorrow. Actually, Josh Fagelson will be hosting tomorrow with Mira Nisham and Nicolescu. I'll be back with you on Wednesday and look forward to continuing as we delve into the Sphira of Gevura this week. Many blessings, everyone. Thanks again, Chai. That was wonderful.
Thank you all. Thanks, Adi, and good